What if the RMS Lusitania, that ill-fated ocean liner carrying American passengers through treacherous U-boat waters, evaded its torpedo doom on May 7, 1915, and steamed safely into Liverpool harbor? As German commander Walter Schwieger shot misses amid choppy seas, the outrage that propelled America toward World War I never ignites, unleashing butterfly effects that stall the Allies' momentum, prolong the Central Powers' resilience, and rewrite the century's bloodiest chapter. No surge of Yankee doughboys, no tipping of the scales. Instead, a fragile stalemate breeds negotiated peace, where empires endure longer, revolutions simmer unchecked, and the seeds of fascism find even fertile ground in a world spared one sinking's horror, but burdened by isolation's unforeseen perils. The afternoon of May 7, 1915, unfolds with deceptive calm off the old head of Kinsale, Ireland. RMS Lusitania, the pride of Cunard Line, steams at 18 knots through foggy waters designated a war zone by German embassy warnings. Captain William Turner, confident in the liner's speed and neutral American passengers, maintains course rather than zigzagging. U-20, commanded by Captain Lieutenant Walter Schwieger, surfaces briefly and spots the four-funneled giant. In our timeline, Schwieger fires a single G-type torpedo at 2:10 p.m., striking just behind the bridge. Secondary explosions, likely from munitions, rip the ship apart. Lusitania sinks in 18 minutes, claiming 1,198 lives, including 128 Americans. Outrage sweeps the United States, eroding isolationism and paving the path to war in 1917. Here, the divergence is subtle yet seismic. Heavy swells and misjudged range cause Schwieger's torpedo to porpoise harmlessly past the stern. A second shot broaches but fails to detonate. Lusitania continues unscathed, docking in Liverpool on May 8 to cheering crowds and front-page headlines celebrating her narrow escape. American passengers disembark furious at German aggression but relieved, no widows, no orphan children, no coffins lining New York piers. President Woodrow Wilson, already cautious, faces muted public reaction. Newspapers decry U-boat piracy, but without graphic images of drowning civilians, calls for war remain fringe. The Arabic pledge, Germany's promise not to sink passenger ships without warning, holds firmer. Bethmann Hollweg restrains the Admiralty to avoid provoking America. Unrestricted submarine warfare, historically resumed in February 1917, stays limited. On the Western Front, the immediate aftermath proves decisive. Without American loans and materials surging from 1917, Britain strains under blockade. Munitions shortages worsen during the 1916 Somme offensive. Haig's artillery barrage lacks historical intensity, yielding smaller gains at greater cost. France, bled white at Verdun, faces mutinies earlier and more severely in spring 1917. Russia teeters. The Brusilov offensive of 1916 succeeds tactically but exhausts reserves without promised Allied relief. Tsar Nicholas II's regime crumbles under bread riots and military defeats. The February Revolution erupts as historically, but Lenin's sealed train from Germany never departs. Berlin, fearing U.S. entry, avoids inflaming Russian radicals. The provisional government survives longer, negotiating a separate peace in late 1917 that cedes Ukraine and Baltic territories but preserves the core state. By 1918, exhaustion grips all combatants. Germany's spring offensive gains ground without American divisions to plug gaps, capturing Amiens and threatening Paris. Yet food shortages and Spanish flu ravaged the home front. Wilson, still neutral, mediates from strength. The 14 points become basis for armistice talks in October 1918. The war ends not in total Allied victory, but negotiated stalemate, no Versailles humiliation, no war guilt clause, milder reparations spread over decades. The Central Powers endure diminished but intact. Austria-Hungary federalizes under Karl I's reforms. Ottoman Empire retains Arabia through British exhaustion. Colonial empires limp on. Britain suppresses Irish Easter rising more brutally without American moral pressure. America retreats deeper into isolationism. The Senate rejects any League of Nations. Wall Street booms on European reconstruction loans. Yet the butterfly effects cascade. A less punitive peace stabilizes Weimar Germany, blunting extremist appeals. Communism, contained without Bolshevik triumph, remains marginal. Europe breathes uneasy relief. spared total collapse, but plant seeds for future rivalries in a world where great powers nurse wounds rather than bury them beneath unconditional surrender. The Lusitania's survival buys humanity 4 fewer years of slaughter, but at the cost of decisive victory, and the fragile stability it forged. The fragile stability it forged. With the war concluding in a negotiated stalemate by late 1918, the global power balance tilts toward multipolar exhaustion rather than decisive Allied hegemony. The Treaty of Geneva, signed in neutral Switzerland, imposes milder terms than Versailles. Germany retains Alsace-Lorraine but cedes minor Polish corridors. Austria-Hungary transforms into a loose federation of states under Habsburg oversight. The Ottoman Empire surrenders Arabia and Mesopotamia to British mandates but keeps Anatolia and Syria. No war guilt clause cripples reparations, payments spread over 30 years with U.S. banking oversight. Russia, under Kerensky's provisional government stabilized by the separate peace, regains pre-1914 borders minus Finland and the Baltics, avoiding Bolshevik seizure. Germany emerges strongest among the Central Powers. Kaiser Wilhelm II abdicates gracefully in favor of Crown Prince Wilhelm. The Weimar equivalent Second Reich adopts constitutional reforms, blending Junker militarism with social democracy. Industrial output rebounds swiftly. Krupp retools for exports. Ruhr coal fuels European recovery. Without U.S. doughboys tipping the scales, Britain faces naval parity demands. The Royal Navy shrinks under Washington Naval Treaty analogues in 1920, ceding qualitative edge. Major battles shift to colonial skirmishes and economic warfare. In 1919, a resurgent German-backed Boer insurgency in South Africa forces premature Dominion status, weakening British Africa. Ireland's Easter Rising escalates into full guerrilla war without American sympathy. Michael Collins' IRA receives covert Berlin arms, securing partition earlier but with Ulster under Dublin influence by 1922. The Ottoman remnant crushes Arab revolts with German advisors, retaining Mosul oil fields and delaying Lawrence of Arabia's legend. Russia's civil war fizzles without Leninist fervor. White forces under Denikin and Wrangel, bolstered by British loans and German non-aggression, defeat Red remnants by 1920. Kerensky evolves into president of a federal republic, industrializing with American capital while suppressing Bolshevik cells. No USSR emerges. Panslavism orients Moscow toward Vienna against Turkish revanchism. France, scarred by Verdun but unbowed, demands stricter reparations, straining Entente ties. Poincaré's bloc national pushes Ruhr occupation in 1923, sparking hyperinflation earlier, but milder without full Versailles load. Britain mediates, prioritizing trade over vengeance. America reaps isolationist harvest. Wilson's 14 points inspire a League of Neutrals. In 1920, U.S.-led economic pact excluding belligerents initially, drawing Latin America and Scandinavia. Wall Street booms on war loans. Fordism spreads globally without wartime disruption. No doughboy radicalization means subdued Red Scare. Immigration quotas loosen, swelling cities with European talent. The 1920s see proxy clashes define power. Greco-Turkish War of 1919 to 1922 ends in Greek victory without Megali idea overreach, stabilizing Balkans under Federal Austria. Japanese-Siberian intervention succeeds modestly, securing Sakhalin oil without U.S. opposition. Colonial unrest simmers. Gandhi's non-cooperation gains traction slower amid British financial strain, but Egyptian revolt of 1919 forces nominal independence by 1925. By the early 1930s, the order crystallizes, a conservative Central European bloc, Germany-Austria-Hungary Federation, maritime Anglo-French Entente clinging to empires, Russian Republic eyeing Black Sea dominance, and isolationist U.S. as economic arbiter. No Great Depression's full fury, coordinated central banking averts 1929 crash. Technological arms races brew in aviation and radio, but tanks stagnate without WWII's crucible. The Lusitania's escape preserves empire's facades but sows discord. Ethnic federalism frays Habsburg lands, Russian liberals clash with monarchists, and colonial subjects agitate amid unmet promises. The stage sets for ideological tremors, not fascist explosions, but simmering revanchism and socialist undercurrents in a world where victory's absence breeds not peace, but precarious balance on the edge of renewed catastrophe. the precarious balance on the edge of renewed catastrophe. The 1930s reveal the stalemate's hidden fractures. Economic interdependence masks growing ideological rifts. Germany's Second Reich, prosperous through Middle Europa customs union with Austria-Hungary and Poland, invests in rearmament under Hindenburg's successors. Naval treaties collapse by 1935, Tirpitz's heirs launch pocket battleships and U-boats openly. France, paranoid without decisive victory, fortifies the Maginot Line deeper into Belgium, straining relations with Britain. Politically, monarchism endures. The Habsburg Federation, trialist structure granting Slavs autonomy, holds through Karl I's successors, but Czech and Yugoslav nationalists agitate for full independence. Russia, under Kerensky's liberal republic evolving into presidential system, modernizes rapidly with American Ford factories in the Volga but faces authoritarian temptations amid border disputes with Poland. Britain clings to empire through divide and rule reforms. Gandhi's civil disobedience gains momentum slower without wartime moral leverage, but Indian Army mutinies in 1932 forced Dominion status by 1938. Socially, the absence of total war preserves hierarchies longer. Women's suffrage spreads gradually, Britain full in 1928, France 1936, without factory mobilizations push. Class structures rigidify, labor movements radicalize in industrial Ruhr and Manchester but lack revolutionary spark. Anti-Semitism simmers in Eastern Europe without scapegoating for defeat, pogroms persist in Ukraine, but no industrialized response emerges. Jewish cultural flowering continues in Vienna and Warsaw, emigration to Palestine slower. Colonial empires fray at edges. Without U.S. moral pressure, Britain suppresses Mesopotamian revolt brutally in 1920, retaining Iraq oil. France integrates Algeria as departments by 1930, yet economic strain forces concessions. Egyptian independence 1936 under pro-British monarchy, Indian federal structure 1935 granting provinces autonomy. Japanese influence grows in China unchecked by Western unity, Manchukuo expands southward by 1935. Technology stagnates in destructive fields. Tanks remain experimental curiosities, armies emphasize cavalry and infantry. Aviation booms commercially, transatlantic Zeppelin routes by 1928, passenger planes by 1935. Radio unites empires culturally, BBC equivalents broadcast propaganda from London to Bombay. Chemical industries flourish for fertilizers, not weapons. By the late 1930s, flashpoints ignite. Japan's invasion of China proper in 1937 draws Russian intervention in Mongolia, border clashes escalate into undeclared war by 1939. Germany, eyeing Slavic lands, supports Croatian separatists within Habsburg Federation. A Balkan crisis erupts in 1940 when Yugoslav regency collapses, German-Italian mediation partitions the state, sparking proxy conflicts. The Second Great War begins not with blitzkrieg but creeping alliances. Russia mobilizes against Japanese Manchuria, Germany honors pacts with Tokyo, invading eastern Poland in 1941. Britain and France, bound by Entente, declare war but remain defensive. America, under persistent isolationism, sells to all sides. Roosevelt's third term fails in 1940 amid merchants of death scandals. Battles remain conventional and grinding. German panzers, developed later without World War I urgency, roll through Polish plains but bog in Russian vastness. Japanese armies capture Vladivostok but stretch supply lines. Naval warfare dominates, British blockades starve German ports, U-boats target convoys. No atomic race yet, science focuses on radar and jet propulsion commercially. The long-term consequence crystallizes, a multipolar world of enduring empires clashing through limited wars and economic blocks. No single ideology dominates, monarchism, liberalism, socialism compete without totalitarianism's extremes. Cultural golden age flourishes in 1920s to 1930s, Art Deco skyscrapers in Shanghai rival New York, modernism thrives unscarred by trenches. Yet ethnic tensions fester unsolved, colonial exploitation intensifies, and technological progress prioritizes commerce over destruction, setting the stage for a 20th century defined not by apocalyptic ideologies, but protracted imperial twilight where great powers maneuver endlessly on the brink. their stability as fragile as the peace bought by one missed torpedo in 1915. The world where great powers maneuver endlessly on the brink, their stability as fragile as the peace bought by one missed torpedo in 1915. The Second Great War erupts fully in 1941, not as ideological crusade but imperial realignment. Germany and Japan, allied through anti-Comintern pacts strengthened by shared victories, coordinate offensives. Berlin strikes Russia in spring, Tokyo escalates in China. Britain and France, exhausted by colonial policing, declare war reluctantly. America, under isolationist President Wendell Willkie elected 1940, proclaims armed neutrality, convoys to Britain but no belligerence. Battles prove attritional. German armies, unscarred by total World War I defeat, advance to Moscow by winter 1941 to 1942 but stall in urban warfare. Russian scorched earth tactics and vast manpower grind the front to stalemate along the Volga. Japanese forces capture Beijing and Shanghai but bog in guerrilla warfare against Chinese nationalists and warlords. Naval clashes dominate. British carriers sink Italian fleet at Taranto equivalent 1942, securing Mediterranean. Japanese seize Singapore 1943 but lose Midway-scale battle off Ceylon, blunting Pacific advance. By 1945, exhaustion forces armistice. The Treaty of Zurich divides spheres. Germany annexes western Russia to the Urals, puppet states in Ukraine and Baltics. Japan gains northern China and Indochina. Britain retains India and Africa but cedes Malaya. France keeps Algeria. America, untouched, mediates as economic arbiter. Post-war order solidifies into imperial quadripartite, German-led Middle Europa, Japanese Greater East Asia, British Commonwealth, and French Union, mutually wary, economically intertwined. Proxy wars flare in Africa and Middle East. Arab revolts partition Ottoman remnants into mandates. No Holocaust-scale genocide. Ethnic cleansing in East brutal but decentralized. The 1950s, 1970s see technocratic prosperity. German rocketry achieves orbital flight 1960, joint European-Japanese lunar landing 1968. Nuclear power, pursued commercially without war urgency, grids online 1965. Television and automobiles boom, consumer culture unites empires elites. Decolonization proceeds negotiated. India federates 1955 under Nehru dynasty, Africa gains dominion status 1960s. No violent partitions, Commonwealth evolves into economic bloc rivaling Middle Europa. In our present day of January 2, 2026, this alternate world is wealthier, more conservative, and strangely stable. Global population 9.1 billion, higher without WWII's demographic scar. Europe thrives as loose confederation of monarchies and republics. Berlin cultural hub, Vienna federal capital. Russia, reduced to Muscovy core, modernizes as energy giant. Asia's co-prosperity sphere democratizes gradually. Tokyo hosts Olympic-scale games annually. Technology outpaces ours in infrastructure. Maglev trains connect Berlin to Baghdad 1980, fusion abundant since 2000. Internet emerges 1990 from commercial radio networks, social media tempered by state oversight. Space colonization cooperative, permanent lunar cities house 50,000, Mars outposts by 2015 mining helium-3. Socially, tradition endures longer. Monarchies persist in Britain, Germany, Japan. Women's rights advance 1970s amid labor shortages. Multicultural empires foster tolerance. Jewish communities flourish in salons from Prague to Shanghai. Environmentalism arises early from colonial resource strain. Carbon caps bind 1985. The Lusitania survival spared America war's direct cost but condemned the world to imperial longevity. No fascist apocalypse, no communist monolith, merely protracted great power rivalry where liberalism competes with enlightened authoritarianism. Democracy spreads gradually, not triumphantly. One torpedo missing its mark in 1915 bought fragile peace through compromise, averting totalitarianism's extremes but prolonging empire's inequities. Humanity learned coexistence amid rivalry, prosperity without cataclysm's purge, yet forever wondering if decisive victory's absence spared lives or merely delayed reckoning. The butterfly effect reminds us, history's greatest horrors often stem not from action, but inaction, and the paths not taken may lead to worlds brighter in parts, darker in shadows, but always profoundly human. Thank you for exploring this shadowed yet enduring timeline where a liner's safe arrival preserved old orders longer, and forged a century of cautious balance over revolutionary fire. What other maritime near misses might have steered humanity from war's abyss, or deeper into it?